The Colorado Rockies are on pace to be the worst team in MLB history in 2025. They're bottom three in every major stat in the league, and it does not seem to be getting any better with their lack of farm system and their lack of spending. And this has been a recurring theme within the organization since they started in 1993 with owners Dick and Charlie Monfort. Now, they've had their fair share of good talent over the years, albeit mostly hitting prospects. Their success hasn't sustained itself, and they've been very inconsistent. Management has led to the downfall of the Colorado Rockies. So this video will go into detail about why, just why, is this team so bad at baseball. So 1993 comes along, expansion. Denver, Colorado gets an expansion team, Mile High Stadium. 90s went as expected for this young expansion team. They weren't very good at baseball. They really didn't show much promise at all. I mean, that's a good solid few players, but nothing that could be sustained. 1994, same thing. 1995 comes along. 1995 comes along. Don Baylor, legendary player, their manager. They 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 made their first playoff appearance that year thanks to strong offensive numbers from future Hall of Famer Larry Walker, who we know went on to win MVP in 1997, was a Hall of Fame player. Dante Bichette, who had who batted 340 that year with a 984 OPS and 40 homers. Vinny Castillo, who had 32 homers that year and a 911 OPS, and Andres Galarraga, who hit 31 homers, and they led to their first ever playoff series. Didn't go very far. They did better than they were expected, but they gave their fans a great showcase despite their pitching being terrible. Their pitching, their problem though was the pitching, which had a 5.6 ERA in 1996, 5.25 ERA in 1997, and had a 4.97 ERA the year they went to the playoffs in 1995. So 1997 came along. They got Todd Helton, who spent his career at the Rockies, put up together a Hall of Fame resume. Yada yada. Not much happened. They were pretty bad. Same old tale. Mediocrity. 2004, they flipped Larry Walker to the Cardinal or to the Red. They got a whole plethora of talent. Then 2006, 2007 comes along. It's time for the next wave of Colorado Rockies talent. 2007 was kind of a weird year for the Rockies. They weren't expected to do good. They had Clint Hurdle as their manager, and they wound up winning 90 games. Thanks to a nice young core of new talent. Matt Holliday, who had 36 homers and had a 1.012 OPS that year. Troy Tulowitzki, who was rising as one of the premier shortstops on both sides. Obviously, they still had Todd Helton. And they found their way on to the World Series, despite their pitching staff having in total a 4.32 ERA. They had a miracle run. They wound up they're clinching a World Series berth, their only one to date, where they got swept by the Red Sox. Things were looking up. They had a nice young core to build around in Tulowitzki and Holliday. The fans were invested, and it was up to the front office to keep going. They did not. Instead, they suffered a bad case of World Series hangover and went back to mediocrity in 2008 with a 74-88 record. To make matters worse, they gutted a lot of their staff that year. Oh, and that Matt Holliday guy you're asking, what happened to him? They traded him to the A's because, well, they traded him too, losing young Billenbach because they had to pay him. More on that later. So, it was same old, rebuilding staff. They wound up letting Troy Tulowitzki go to, and then so things were kind of bleak again. Then 2017, 2018 comes around. They make the playoffs in back-to-back seasons for the first time in their franchise history. They had a core of Nolan Arenado, Charlie Blackmon, Carlos Gonzalez, DJ LeMahieu, and this young shortstop named Trevor Story. 2017, all of them had pretty great years. They also had role players like Tony Walter, longtime journeyman Mark Reynolds, Ian Desmond they signed in 2017. They had a young Ryan McMahon. And, 2017, 2018 went well. 2017, they really didn't. They went 87-75. They lost to the wild card to the Diamondbacks. 2018, same story. 2018, same story. They didn't do much. They also had Kyle Freeland and German Marquez have breakout years in 2018. They brought in free agent closer Wade Davis that year. They found themselves one game behind the Dodgers in 2018. They had to go to a game 163. They lost, but that more on that later. They decided they didn't need to make any trade deadline moves. They made one move, but it was for and it turned out to backfire for them. They made the playoffs. We all know they beat the Cubs in 13 in the wild card game that year, and then they got swept in the NLDS by the red-hot Milwaukee Brewers. 2019, though, and again, like the fans thought, everything was on the rise. The Rockies made the playoffs 2 straight years. They got a nice young core to build around again. They got a fun hitting staff. Their pitching is actually showing signs of being good with Freeland and Marquez. And then 2019 was the beginning of their downfall again. DJ LeMahieu left in free agency to join the Yankees, and their lineup was still great with career years from Arenado and Story, and Ryan McMahon took another leap this year, and Charlie Blackmon also continued to have a great year. They brought in Daniel Murphy. I bet you can guess what the issue was. Their pitching. The only member of their rotation who had under a 4 ERA was John Gray, and he was a 3.84. So, things couldn't get much worse. They ended 71-91. Okay. Down year. Which, now is only the beginning. Coors Field has long been deemed as a hitter-friendly park and doesn't like pitchers. In fact, it's been proven several times that players who've signed with the Rockies have actually gotten statistically worse at Coors compared to other ballparks. Example, a player could have a 6.7 ERA at Coors Field and have a 2.7 ERA away from it because the difference in the elevation with the mile-high city, the ball carries differently, and you got to hold the ball differently and all that stuff. And that has led to key pitchers in free agency not wanting to sign and ruin their careers with the Rockies. 2020, not much happened during the season. 26-34 pandemic, so not much. But it was what happened. It was what happened the following off season, where everything really went downhill. Superstar third baseman Nolan Arenado signed an 8-year, $260 million contract extension with the organization prior to the 2019 season. Full known trade clause. He was probably thinking, the team's gonna, build all this talent. We're gonna be really good. But then he grew unhappy with the organization, and quote unquote, he didn't feel there was much respect going on with people that he should have respect for, leading for him requesting a trade before the 2020 season. However, he stayed with the team for the year after the front office reiterated they didn't like any offers they were getting for the 8-time Gold Glover and the probable future Hall of Famer. February 21st, 2021, though, that all changed. Arenado got his wish, was traded to the St. Louis Cardinals in exchange for starting pitcher Austin Gomber, who's the only member of the trade still actually on the team, though he has been very bad. Mateo Gil, Tony Lockey, Jake Summers, guys with career minor leaguers who really, I don't know what any of them are doing nowadays, and Elihuris Montero, who spent a good 3 seasons with the Rockies, was inconsistent, and I believe is currently playing in Mexico. To make matters worse, the Rockies gave the Cardinals $50 million to help pay for that contract, leading many Rockies fans to question the front office and the ownership. As Dick Monfort, the primary owner of the team, he really doesn't give out a lot of big contracts, doesn't spend a lot of money. 2021 was another year in the gutter for the Rockies. 74-87. They really didn't have a lot of talent. Brendan Rodgers did great. Ryan McMahon did great. But their pitching was bad. Lineup was okay. But their big controversy was not trading away star shortstop Trevor Story at the trade deadline. He was going to be a free agent at the end of the season, and with the year he was having he was batting .251 with the 801 OPS, 24 homers, 75 RBIs. They could have netted a great return of prospects that the Rockies could have developed. Nah. Instead, he left in the offseason and signed a 6-year contract with the Red Sox, and the Rockies had to improvise. 2022 offseason, 2021-2022, after the lockout, they decided to sign former Cubs All-Star and former NL MVP Chris Bryant to a 7-year, $182 million contract, largest in team history, which he has since stated he regretted the contract, wishing that he would have done more research about the team's farm system and trajectory going forward. Tells you all you need to know about the Rockies. Right? And even he hasn't panned out for them. He's dealt with a bunch of injuries, and when he's played, he hasn't even been that good, unfortunately. 2022-2024, they were last every year. Their prospects they called up seemed to fail. Ryan McMahon, Ezekiel Tovar, Brenton Doyle, 3 homegrown stars who seem to have been good for them in that time frame. But other than that, really nothing else has panned out for them. Jeff Bridget left. Bill Schmidt was promoted to GM. He didn't really build much of an organization there. And we get to 2025. They currently, as of this video, they stand at 18-63, the worst record in the major leagues by a wide margin. I think the next worst team is the White Sox, and I think they are at like 29 wins or something. So they're still not great, but not bad. They have a minus 211 run differential, bottom barrel in almost every stat, and their farm system isn't even that good either. It's just been deploying bust after bust over the years. In fact, their best pitcher this year has been Ryan Feltner in the rotation, who has a 4.75 ERA. Yeah. Their best pitcher overall has been Jake Bird. He's pitching at 2.62 ERA. That's because he doesn't have to do a lot of the work and he's got a bullpen. But, yeah, the team just hasn't been very good. In fact, the player with the highest WAR on the team is Ryan McMahon and Hunter Goodman. They both have a 1.5 year WAR. Everything else, they've just been absolutely terrible. They are on pace to win like 29 games. And could be eliminated before the All-Star break. They just have been historically bad this year. Ain't getting better. Nobody wants to go to their games, which I don't blame them. I wouldn't either. And they lowball, and so the real question is why has this team been so bad? It's all the factors explained throughout the video. The can't assemble good pitching, aka the Coors effect. They don't spend money. They lowball their star players or hold on to them for too long, or they don't trade them. The key issue has been ownership. Dick Monfort has been known to have a heavy amount of impatience with the organization. He's even went as far to reply to fan complaints about product by email, saying maybe Denver doesn't deserve them, and telling fans if you don't like the product, then don't go to the games, which I think is terrible to say as an owner because, you're the owner, you should try your best to assemble a good team so that people want to actually go and watch the team, especially because Coors Field is a hitter-friendly ballpark. You can hit a lot of home runs there. Those are responses you don't want to hear from your owner, especially given the Rockies' situation, rock bottom, which, at the rate things are going, is not probably going to improve anytime soon. So if you guys like that's my recap. If you guys like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.